It's been a while since I've seen OMG Scoots or whatever it was.
And it's Hotline League episode. There we go. This is my camera. It's Hotline League episode 112. So excited to be here, guys. Actually, a ton of crazy stuff has happened this past week, and we're going to dive into all of it here as we're diving down in the dives at this dive bar of a show. No, I'm just kidding. But we do have somebody from the dive here, and as soon as Kobe gets home to this apartment, I'll be surrounded by all three members of the dive.
So the real question is, are we on Hotline League or are you just on the dive?
I think
because I think at this point you're pretty much just on the dive.
Well,
so I think we should.
Do you want to sully the dive's name with this quality?
Oh, that's actually true. Yeah.
All right, let's see. Who's your report of the week, Mark?
I'm reporting.
Hey, that's a good segment.
You didn't know it is. Well, I want to talk about the dive in a second, but first off, let me finish introing the show. First off, thank you so much to Alienware for sponsoring Hotline League, not the dive. And really appreciate them. We'll talk more about them as the show goes on.
We have Alienware computers on Hotline League too. Or
yeah,
the
no,
dive.
It's true. You do. You have the beautiful ones. Mark is here, my constant co-host. How's it going, Mark?
Good. Just got back from the show. Went a little late because CLG and Immortals forgot how to win games. CLG could have literally just ended the game when only Nautilus was up. And then they let it go for 15 more minutes to lose. So
yeah,
a little bit weird, but we're here now.
If you want to know why we're all starting late, blame CLG. But we are joined today by literally a world champion who has got to be literally tired of that meme already.
That's why
Azael himself.
Yeah. I was gonna say, as far as memes go, I'd rather have a positive one like that, though. It's
That's true.
And the final member of the dive,
spreading the good word. It's letting everyone know.
The final member of the dive about to walk past my doorway. Right there he is, Kobe.
Can we kick you off and get Kobe on?
Kobe, can Kobe get in here and just take your spot?
No.
We'll just do Hotline Dive, hot dive line,
dive line league,
dive line league. Anyway, great to see you, Azael. How you been? What's been going on? You were just saying, man. as far as memes go, being called literally a world champion over and over again is not a bad way.
Yeah, definitely not a bad thing. That is kind of blown up. I didn't expect that to blow up as much as it did. So that's fun. Been working on a lot of Lane Kingdom and stuff, casting, doing some orange segments.
Well, I wanted to talk, by the way, about the dive. You mentioned it, but the dive I actually really like it. In the past, I felt like you guys it was like a great show, but also very...
Oh, you just cut out. A great show, but what? Oh, I can't hear him at all now.
Yeah, can you hear me still?
I can hear you. Better.
Hello.
Yeah.
Just me?
Oh, shit. He's back.
Anyway, we're back. Everybody else could hear me. Or Twitch chat could hear me. Right, Twitch chat? They're now just trolling me. I'm pretty sure we're good. Anyway,
you're fine. You're good.
I like the dive. And I think you guys have done a bunch of really cool stuff to it. I like all the segments. And it's good.
It's because we kicked that loser out and put me in.
Yeah. Also, I've been listening to some other podcasts. I've been listening to a really funny sports podcast, and I've just been stealing things from them. So
don't admit that. No one will know.
That's helped to improve the show.
What's the funny sports podcast?
It is Pardon My Take. It's really funny, actually. If you like sports, I would recommend checking that out. They're more spicy than I think we can be on a Riot podcast, but
why?
I mean, if you don't know who they are, they're the Barstool guys. So I used to live in Boston, and Barstool was huge.
Roasting some of their guests and stuff like while they're on to their face.
They're pretty ridiculous. It's Big Cat's like the main guy there still, right? For that.
Yeah.
He was always funny.
I like PMT commentator and all that. Like they're like. I mean, they'll be having a guy on, and they're just like roasting about his hairline the whole show and stuff. They're just like, damn, like, do you get insecure seeing like your backup quarterback has like gray head of hair, and here your busted ass is? Like everyone knows you're going bald. It's just like they're just roasting their guests, and it's like, damn.
You guys got to start doing that. I think that'd be great.
Yeah.
Although you don't have any guests.
Yeah, true. Maybe we would have guests if we were allowed to roast them.
We should Photoshop someone and pretend they're a guest the whole time. Just
If
roast.
we had Travis on, we could definitely roast Travis.
Jat, the first year, that's what I was gonna say. The first year of the dive, Jat asked me if I wanted to be on the dive sometime, and I was like, sure. He's like, yeah, I think we get to have a whole conversation about what it's like to do the media side stuff. And I was like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then he quit his job. And,
True, he did quit his job.
And so I never got on, and I never will be on, I think. And that's
was that back in the audio days? Yeah, we don't do a lot of guests. So I mean, when Jat left, when he went to the balance team, obviously Kobe and I kind of had to figure out what we want to do with the show, and we did try doing more of like the idea was because we're like, okay, well, what the hell do we do? Jat's gone. That was our show was started. The idea was Kobe, Jat, and I were always talking about League during the office. Let's just basically stream that, right? And that was supposed to be the show. So when Jat left, we had to kind of think what we wanted to do differently, and we did try, bringing in a lot of pros. We tried kind of rotating hosts and stuff, but I've always found when it's more of a consistent 3, I think it's just like more natural, more relaxed. You kind of get in the rhythm with those people, and
I think
at
you
least
just need a consistent 2, and then some callers and maybe a guest every now and then. I think that's the best way to host a show.
Yeah, just change everything, and then it's put on Skype, so you have technical problems every episode.
Yeah. It makes it feel a little bit more authentic, than when these overproduced.
That's scrubbed clean. Yeah,
true.
I did.
But it's been fun having Mark on. I've actually really enjoyed it. So
I'm happy taking Jat's spot everywhere I can on the analyst desk on the far left side.
That's true.
The dive.
You've got to go for this or that. Take over team fight breakdown.
I can't wait for the JLXP to die, and I can take that one too.
Just start the
JLXP hosted by Mark
MZXP.
Yeah.
Just start the MZXP, man.
Yeah. The podcasting is interesting about guests because people like the idea of guests, and then I spoke to some pretty big like podcast agents, and they were talking about how it's actually most podcasts that are like the most successful, the ones that don't use guests. Like Joe Rogan is actually more the exception than the rule, and having like Azael saying a set 3, because a lot about podcasting is like this kind of feel of sitting in with these people discussing, and if there's any awkwardness between the people, like it feels really bad for people sitting in a car to listen to awkwardness, and that's like where podcasting is like done the most, is when it's done to fill time. So no guests is actually the meta, not the other way around, despite how the esports podcasts do it.
I feel like guests can definitely work, but maybe sometimes guests are good for a segment or things like that. But it's sometimes tough if it ends up feeling like a bit of an interview, which I think is how a lot of the pro guests sometimes felt, because they don't do it, right? They don't do podcasts. They're not on it week to week. They don't have the same rapport with each other.
I'm not as good as friends with them as I am with you.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like some of them you have more of a personal relationship with, and you feel comfortable like making fun of them and going back and forth and taking shots. Others you don't really know that well, so it's kind of like, ooh, can I actually say this? And you don't really want to, so it ends up being like, so what do you think about this, Mark? Why did you do that? And it kind of turns into an interview sometimes, but they definitely can work out well. Also, I see the copy pasta in the chat. I respect it.
A couple different things before we get into the show. Now that we've talked about podcasts on a podcast for quite some time, I think lots to talk about this week. CLG getting their second win. Pobelter, maybe their match tonight, which was still pretty painful, but at least they had a chance of winning it. TSM losing, I think, is fascinating. Golden Guardian, like the Immortals, seems like they're in free fall. Immortals feels like they're in free fall. Team Liquid winning 2-0 during a rough split with a sub ADC, and what that means. I don't know. Am I missing any of the big stories?
Nope. It's time for you to find a new best friend to milk for interviews. Tactical. Friendship ended with Doublelift.
Just a one-to-one replacement. I think that's
exactly.
That's really the cleanest way to do it.
Pictures of us hanging out.
Just Photoshop him in. You can start telling the Doublelift story about how he's homeless and start living with you, and
You should just still put Doublelift in the title, but you're actually interviewing Tactical. No one will know. Farm the views.
Jesus. I have a little mini rant before. And
Travis he knows all his YouTube's gonna tank now. Doublelift, no longer a starter. It's all over for Travis. Just a slow descent into
this is his Patreon rant.
Yeah.
I just think people don't do enough to support independent content creators. No. Somewhat, kind of similar, but Azael, I understand if you want to take a backseat to this rant because it's a thing that Mark and I constantly talk about. But I'm a little sad this week because I think it's a little bit of a bummer that Riot is closing down their game boards. I don't know if people saw this, but they're shutting down their forums and apparently getting rid of the archives too, which I think is a whole different thing. Maybe I'll do a video on it. But I'm also really disappointed because right after they did that, last night they announced Valorant and they created the Valorant subreddit and then they gave control of it to the League of Legends mods. And there was a time where I defended the League of Legends mods because I was like, well, it's really difficult, but man, have they just been god awful for the past year and making decisions that the community doesn't really care about, and overall just bringing down the subreddit. I think that the most recent decision to allow just like straight up gameplay clips that get really bad. Like right now, there's a clip on the front page that's been up for 7 hours and has 7 comments on it. Like the subreddit, I feel like is just kind of in free fall, and I'm really disappointed that Riot decided that the best thing to do was to hand over the brand new subreddit to the exact same people. So
I haven't been looking at comments actually, but now that I'm scrolling through them, yeah.
Oh, on the League subreddit?
Yeah, because I usually just kind of like my eyes glance over it.
No, I think the League subreddit is like I think an interesting thing. Somebody who's smarter than I am could scrape and look at all the comments on those videos and also compare like engagement on the subreddit versus like, I'm sure there's way more upvotes, right? Because people click that link and then they just upvote it. It's why like the Overwatch subreddit is just filled with gameplay clips. But
and I like the gameplay clips, honestly. I like being able to go on there and just find some random shit that's like, oh, that's cool. I like seeing this. And I wouldn't have a problem with it if there wasn't also I don't want to go too hard on the mod thing again because I've realized that my words can create work for people who I don't want to create work for. If it was just
what that
me,
means, but
yeah, I know that's kind of vague, but what I will say is I feel like, and this was kind of what I've said before, is that there's too much attention paid to the letter of the law versus the spirit of it. Where like the appreciation post for Countdown's game show did not have the arbitrary 500 character limits that appreciation posts need to be considered quality content. So it got taken down. Why, like, does the quality really go up with the extra input from the original post if the discussion is good, you know? And rather than be like, okay, this one's only 340, but it's good, we can leave it. They're like 500 rule, delete, you know? And it's like, just like, they always talk about how much work it is to like, if they were to manually do this for everything on the front page, but the front page is 25 posts and the second page is 25 posts. Like realistically, you're scanning 50 or something. I don't think it's that hard to do because you can just ignore the shit appreciation posts that don't get any upvotes and aren't overwhelming the subreddit. I don't know. Anyways, my point is, it feels bad to Travis's point when you see something with no interaction with 7 upvotes up on the subreddit when you pulled down something that was getting hundreds in the first hour or couple hours as people liked that thing.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, I have probably a bit of a different outlook because I literally just don't read Reddit.
Yeah, Azael's next level brain.
What do you do? Actually, so part of the problem I run into Azael is like, I like engaging with the community, reading the comments, not always about me. Like, let's be clear here. I had like a 5,000 upvoted Reddit thread just talking about how I literally don't know how to do my job. And yet, I still like...
It was over 500.
What's that?
So it was over 500 characters, so it's a good post.
It's true. Quality content. But even with all that, I love the subreddit. And people will say it's because, you know, I get a ton of views from there. It's not true. Actually, I get, like, last year I got less than 5% of my traffic.
Yeah, it's really small.
Yeah, it doesn't drive very much. But the conversation is quite good. And that's why, like, I actually feel passionate about it. So back to my question, Sales, like, are there alternative places you can go to, like, see community conversation? Or, you know what I mean? Like, I like that that interaction? I know you spend a lot of time on
So
Twitter, right? So
yeah, so I mean, I spend a lot of time on Twitter. I think I get a lot of community interaction from that. I mean, I respond to like almost everyone who tweets me, unless it's just like I don't know, something that doesn't warrant responding to, I guess. But so for me, like the reason I stopped reading the League subreddit is because I think it is very like vitriolic and it can be very, very hateful. And I think that my issue with the League subreddit is that I don't think they see League personalities and pros as people. They see them as like a product. And so they comment on it without taking into consideration like how it affects those people or pros. And I have just seen like it's such like a cycle to me on Reddit where Reddit will love me and then they will just absolutely loathe me for a while and then it'll maybe go back to loving me again. And it's just kind of this circle, right? And I feel like I've seen so many people so heavily affected by it where, they maybe you weren't torn apart by getting roasted on Reddit, but I have literally seen multiple casters and personalities and people brought to tears by some of the things said to them on Reddit. I have seen people go the absolute opposite side of it where they are getting an enormous ego because of things said on Reddit. And to me it's just like it was just really unhealthy for my mental health. And whether they were being really nice to me or not, they're always roasting someone that like I am friends with or know personally, and it just felt bad for me to always read all the negativity. It's always kind of like giving with one hand and taking away with the other. It's very rarely, as I think most people know, just saying like Mark is a great analyst. It's like Mark is a great analyst, and that makes it so obvious that Jad is dog shit, right? And it's like it's always phrased kind of like in that
Where do I
way.
upload that one?
So I've just basically found that I can get that discussion at work. I can get that discussion on Twitter. As far as feedback and stuff, I have people that I trust and ask for feedback. And for the most part, I feel confident knowing like what I'm good at, what I'm bad at. And if someone's going to roast me on Reddit for something that's like, I'm bad at, I probably already know about it and I'm working on it. And if I don't, someone will tell me. So I use there's like a LOL eSports sub that links a lot of articles and stuff. And I use that to keep up with articles. I follow a lot of content creators and stuff on Twitter that I follow. And yeah, I mean, I talk about League all day at work and on Twitter. So I just don't feel like I'm really out of the loop or on anything, but I feel much more even keel as a result of kind of not going through this like cycle of up and down, along with how Reddit is feeling about me or my coworkers or LCS or Riot in general.
all right, so I'm
And
looking at the LOL esports subreddit because I
I was
hadn't.
gonna
I know people have talked about it, but I haven't been here in a while. My biggest concern with this, looking at it, is I don't see any of my interviews on the subreddit. That is, see, everybody else's, none of my stuff.
I was gonna say the other thing
That's
too is
weird.
because so many people do use Reddit that like I know I am constantly like pre-show dive. I'm like, hey Isaac, did you see this on Reddit? And of course the answer is no, but I still ask him anyways. And then I'll tell him what it was anyways. So like he still kind of gets like the top big story headlines that might not like I don't know. There's so
Yeah.
many people talking about that you're still looped into the conversations even if you're not actually reading the comments or something.
Yeah, totally. And if someone's roasting me on Reddit and it's for a legitimate reason, someone will be like, "Hey, did you see this thing? This person saying you're saying this too much, or you're doing this thing wrong, or maybe people are liking this type of segment that you did. Do more of that." It's not as though I am not getting the general TLDR. I've just found like last year I was thinking a lot about the longevity of casting and just careers in esports, and so many people in esports come and go so quickly, it feels like. And I think part of the reason is people burn out and people are really, really stressed all the time, and that's true for the majority of people. I don't know if I actually asked you, Mark, but I asked a ton of different people, basically, could you see yourself doing the same job in say like 30-35 years, because most of the casting team is like 30 plus, right? And so if average age of retirement is 65, could you do the same job at the same like level of stress and stuff, for 30-35 years? And almost everyone I talked to was saying no, like instantly. And people just felt like they're too stressed out, they're too concerned about things going on, it's always on their mind. And I felt like that was true for me. So for me, I very consciously last year tried to make a change as far as reducing the things that were stressing me out, making myself be like more okay with, being like out of touch with maybe some of the little goings on with Reddit, with the knowledge that someone's going to catch me up on it, or I can find out about things from other sources and stuff like that. And just trying to think long term about this, because I love esports. It's been literally my entire adult life, and I want to be in esports until I retire. So, I need to think about making it sustainable for myself. And a lot of that is kind of protecting your mental health as well as your physical health.
Yeah. No, it's well played, or well said, I think. I think that's a really good point.
Well played, gamer.
However, I stand by my disappointment that Riot handed off the Valorant subreddit to the same folks who are running the League of Legends subreddit, because I just feel like they don't get it. I miss the old mods. Anyway, let's get into some calls. Mark, you want to explain how the show works?
Yeah, if you've never been on the show before, it's a live call-in show, believe it or not. And if you want to get on, you have to go and join the Discord that I'm spamming Twitch chat with right now. When you get there, join Pleb Calls, the voice channel. There's also Pleb Calls too, or sub calls. And then in the Pleb Topics or subtopic text channel, you will go ahead and post whatever it is you want to talk about. Hopefully it's a take, like TSM is doomed and they're not going to make Worlds again this year. If we like your take, I will pull you from the Pleb Calls voice channel into the waiting room, where you will hang out until it's your turn. We'll do a quick audio check in there, and then assuming it's all gravy, you'll be on the air.
Very good. And if you are a sub, first off, thank you for being a sub. I see a bunch of people subbing right now, including Whoopley, who just subbed 8 months. Thank you, Whoopley. Fantastic individual on the Riot Games player staff. Anyway, but either way, if you do sub, you can sync that with your Discord, and you can access the subtopics chat, which moves a little bit slower, gives you a bit of a better chance of coming on the show. Anywho, Mark, you want to go grab our first caller?
Yeah, give me 1 second.
A lot of people a lot of familiar faces in the chat today. Good to see everybody. Missed you all. Good, lot of familiar faces. And while we're waiting for that, I upped my volume a bit, because after everybody told me my volume was fine at the start of the show, other people started complaining about it. So, Blank27, thank you. D3Lug3, thank you for the 2 months. Bruise3G, thank you for the 2 months. Monk of Mahir, Clam Hands, Ronald Dinho, Tan Mender, Sexy Edges sent 500 bits. I think that's how you say that. And we've got our first caller here. Caller, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Regina, Saskatchewan.
Regina, Saskatchewan. I believe that's in Canada.
Yeah, Prairie, Canada, right in the middle.
And I believe Azael is also from Canada.
You believe correctly.
Is Saskatchewan anywhere close to where you're from?
No, not really.
Travis, are you avoiding saying our caller's name for some reason?
What?
Are you avoiding saying our caller's name? Did you say it?
No, I don't believe so. Anyway,
who's calling?
Caller, what do you want to talk about on the show tonight?
Hashtag Capra Kobe is the caller.
So my take is that C9 looks really good right now. But I think that they will go undefeated. But I think that they wouldn't go undefeated if it wasn't so tight in the middle of the soup right now. And because of that, it's not worth it for teams to prepare for them. I think that this was especially proved this week, thanks to the interviews before the FlyQuest and Dignitas games. In the FlyQuest one, I think it was Curry who responded to Tigress asking if they had prepared anything special for C9. And he pretty much immediately tried to downplay it and be like, no, we didn't really prepare anything. And then the Dignitas draft was hilarious. It was all these comfort picks that I think were really obviously, not a prepared, synergistic team comp to try and take down C9. It was just let's pick whatever.
Interviewer extraordinaire Ovly also chimed in and said all coaches say that, though, kind of about every match, about, we didn't really prepare something special. Sometimes if you have a really whack draft, they'll be like, yeah, we cooked this up. But
yeah, I think that makes sense. I think it makes sense to not try and prepare for either easy matches or hard matches more, because the hard matches obviously they matter more, but they're gonna be hard, so it's not worth it to prepare. But I felt his response was particularly really trying to downplay it. He just fully backed off on it.
I would actually say that the Dignitas draft tonight looked like they did do that because it was Cloud9, though. So I don't know what they actually did or how much time they spent preparing this, but he said they were preparing Ignite Lucian, which to me seems about as risky of a pick as you can do, and that felt like throwing a Hail Mary because you're playing against Cloud9, right? And you're trying something really risky because, hey, the payoff is maybe you actually beat the best team in the league, and the downside is you lose. Well, guess what? You were going to lose anyway. So I felt like that was kind of taking a shot at C9, and I still think that teams are like, whether or not you have a specific draft prepared for them, I think when you are at the top of the league and when you're clearly the best team, especially teams like TL and TSM and the ones that are trying to compete for a championship, are naturally going to be looking towards them more and trying to be thinking about holes in their play. So,
and I think I do agree with the caller a little bit. Like in terms of prepping, could be like, oh, we thought up a cool draft to try and get a win, but I definitely don't think you should be like hard spamming that draft in scrims for a week to make it optimally practice, because then you're probably not preparing, or like you're not focusing on improving, you're focusing on, quote unquote cheesing C9, which is probably not the best use of your time, like you're saying, when you're in the struggle so much to try and climb above these other teams. That said, that was a draft that like was like halfway there for me. Whereas like, okay, the Ignite Lucian top with Elise to like turbo pressure top, but then they didn't really have too much else going on with the Anivia and the Jinx TK to make me feel like it was quite volatile enough, because it was just all in on top side. Whereas I would have liked to have just seen like 3 super sketch like all in lanes, kind of like EG did that one game against, I think it was FlyQuest, it might have been Immortals, where they had like LeBlanc, Lucian bot lane, and some other crap top to go super aggro. Because first off, Licorice played so well. Like it's hard to notice in the Lucian matchup when you're not getting any help. But Grig was up there all the time, sitting behind his turret, trying to camp him. He traded flashes evenly with Huni and baited out the Ignite. He TP'd bot lane to just relieve some pressure when there was some down there. His team swapped up topside at the right time. Instead of going top to protect Aatrox from getting dove, Blabber went bot lane to get his bot lane priority so that they could swap up for the Rift Herald, and they were able to grab that one. Like the entire team, I mean, I'm putting a lot on Licorice, but obviously the entire team was actually really, really smart about where to send people to negate the game plan. It was super impressive.
Yeah, I think to Azael's point, yeah, I think that draft was a Hail Mary, and it was obviously a real attempt to take down C9. But I think like Mark said, it obviously like wasn't practiced. It wasn't like perfectly thought out, right? Like it wasn't all there. And like, so obviously they weren't like preparing that draft specifically in scrims. It was just, an idea, not so much a real strong preparation.
I mean, sorry, the initial take that you had, caller, was that people will not try as hard to beat C9.
Well, yeah, that if you have a week coming up where you're facing EG and C9, you're going to spend most of the week preparing for EG, because that match matters more than taking down C9, and taking down C9 is probably impossible anyway.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I guess the impossible thing is just kind of a strange take for me, because while C9 looks like they're way ahead of the curve, I feel like all these other teams are catching up, right? Like one of the things I was talking to Niski about in this interview I just did with them like an hour ago was that it like Team Liquid looked pretty solid this weekend with a sub, and it does feel like they are catching up, right? And so I think that, I mean, in some cases, like Immortals is definitely not catching up, right? They're falling behind, but it does feel like there are teams that are starting to be able to nip at the heels of C9 and will get better over the next couple of weeks. So you're right, like there's a world where they don't, like C9 just goes undefeated, but I do think it is interesting because I do feel like the rest of the LCS is starting to catch up. Do you guys disagree with that? I'm actually kind of curious, Mark.
I disagree with that.
You think nobody's catching up?
I think Cloud9, maybe other teams are improving, but there's nothing to indicate that the gap is closing, because Cloud9 is looking so much better than every other team. Not only are they way more consistent overall, they win every fucking game in 30 minutes. It's actually insane. I don't think we've ever had a team that has been that dominant as far as consistently winning games. None of them ever look close. almost every single one is closed out with first Baron. Yes, today was, I guess, second Baron, but that was because first Baron was at like 22 minutes or something. But they look so much better than every other team that it's almost like you could say they're staying stagnant or something, but it's almost like they're stagnant at near perfect, right? They haven't had a single game where I really want to criticize much of anything.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're like resting on their laurels. It's not like I made this point in the desk, but it's not like it's Zyra, Rumble, Ashe, Zach every game. Like like when C9 was really dominant when they first burst out on the scene. Like there's a Morgana game in there. There's Zoe. Here's a Pantheon. It's like a lot of different looks, and they're doing a lot of different things. So I think it looks pretty good. To Azael's point, only Team Liquid is really stepping up. They've already shown FlyQuest isn't catching them. Team Liquid's close, and they have the last game of the season. But TSM's taking steps to nowhere. They're just kind of running in circles, I guess. I don't know. So
I think
I'm calling the 18-0 as well.
The only 3 teams that look like they're really like moving up the standings or like moving up right now are Golden Guardians, CLG, and TL. And of those 3, like I don't think GG like they play all those 3 teams still. C9 does, but I don't think GG's or CLG really have a solid shot at taking down C9. So I think it's going to come down to like that last game.
Well, that's just CLG just comes in, takes their only other win against Cloud9. No, okay. Question for Azael and Mark then, to the caller's point. Do you bother spending much time trying to prepare for C9?
I honestly just don't think very many teams prepare really specific strategies for individual teams during the regular season. Most teams are just looking at whatever their holistic problems are and just trying to play pretty well. I think if it's like you're way above every other team or something and there's only one team that can challenge you, then sure, maybe you do that, right? If TL wins every single game until they play C9 next time, then they're probably doing a specific game plan. But in general, and maybe this is partly what the caller's point was, unless you're way above everyone else, you spend your time just trying to fix all your individual problems instead of prepping a specific strategy for a specific team. That's more of a playoffs thing usually.
You don't think teams are prepping like pick and ban strategies? Like,
no, they do that.
But that's like the night before. The coach is like, all right, what did they play? Okay, we're gonna plan out our first round of picks and bans and stuff, and then they maybe have diverging strategies. But like, I don't think they're spending the whole week being like, all right, let's see like all their tendencies and practice specific strategies that we think are going to be able to exploit that.
I mean, so for us on Thursday, we would have our initial pick ban meeting. That would be like, this is our general idea for usually our first game of the week, maybe both, or maybe if there was a bigger one that we want to spend more time on, we would do it then. And then we would spend Friday trying to get that draft and the different variations. But that's like one day of practice out of 4 of team practice that you're really doing that. And to Isaac's point and the caller's point, like, if I'm doing that, even if some teams probably aren't doing that and they just want to keep focusing. Like, even if you are doing that one team you're picking is probably not C9.
So it sounds like both of you guys believe in the 18-0 C9 narrative.
I think there's a good chance for them to go 18-0, but I also don't think you have to be as good as a team to beat them. It's a best of 1, right?
Right.
I think that there's a decent shot that they lose, and I don't even think it has to be to a top team necessarily. I think that if they have a really shit game, then that can happen. I mean, I think it's the thing that makes you feel like they're going to go 18-0 is the fact that they're almost always winning all 3 lanes, right? And then it's like, even if one lane has a really bad game, then you can maybe get away with that. If the other 2 lanes are winning, it's not necessarily just going to be boom. But I think it's definitely possible that they win. And when you look at TSM in the past when they had their 17 wins and Immortals and stuff, like, they lost to unexpected teams. TSM lost to Phoenix 1 off of that like Inori Rengar game where he got however many kills, I don't know, 12, 14, whatever, some insane amount, and no one would have really predicted that. So I think it can definitely happen.
All right. Did any other follow-ups, caller?
No, yeah, I think that was part of my point. What you guys were saying earlier is that the teams in that middle have so many problems that it's hard for them to prepare for teams specifically, and it is, just a lot about fixing all those problems. A lot of these teams, even TL, I mean, they're still coming together as a team, so they can't really prepare for C9. Maybe by the end of the split they can, but yeah.
Either way, thanks so much for the call. Anything you want to say before we move on to the next caller?
Shout outs to the Saskatchewan Roughriders and Super Smash Bros. Melee for the Nintendo GameCube.
That's my dude.
Good shout out.
Have a good one.
Bye.
All right, moving
I
on.
love that. Bye.
Well, yeah, I caught him. I transferred him
funny
as
how
he
it
was.
sounded.
I was kicking him out the door as he said bye. I feel bad.
One more.
Game or Girlfriend subscribed. Ladder Slider for 10 months. Arcane Archer. Spencer 1292. Vorimer. Milliman. Parakini. Munsalicious for 18 months. Cable 55. Whoopley. Tacosaurus Rex. Smoke Dog. Pilgrim Panda for 9 months. And Wild LOL for 16 months says, hello from Seoul. We staying healthy, boys. Everybody stay healthy. Are you staying healthy, Azael?
Trying my best.
Good job.
Been washing my hands with soap a lot.
Yeah. That's the way. That's what you got to do. I love that Mark is... There he is. Okay. We've got our next caller. EGX is here. EGX, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Houston, Texas.
Houston, Texas. What do you want to talk about on the show tonight?
My take is that TSM is another first round exit this year, and I think that it's time to address the problem where Bjergsen is the problem ever since Doublelift has left. And my proof is that this season he's second to last in DPM and last in team gold percentage, even though he's been in like the top 5 for gold difference and XP differential at 10. And I think the meta is shifting to more proactive mid, like where Duanby has been doing with
FPX.
Yeah, FPX. There you go. And then even within the LCS, Niski has been able to do it pretty successfully. And I think it's time for Bjergsen. I mean, he hasn't seemed to adjust as well as these comrades in the LCS. So yeah.
Bjergsen is the problem. By the way, when we said first round exit, are you talking about in playoffs?
Yeah, in playoffs.
Okay.
So there's two takes. It's the outcome and the reason.
Yeah.
Right.
So I will say it. At least I think gold percentage is such a garbage stat. Like that doesn't mean anything, right? You know, the percentage of your team's gold that you have, unless Bjergsen is actually CSing poorly, it's just pretty much irrelevant. It's how they're allocating their gold. I'd also say, you know, he played Ornn mid, he played Maokai mid, you know, and if you're talking about, I think you're conflating a couple different things, because if you're going to talk about team gold percentage and say Bjergsen's bad because he doesn't have a lot, but also Duanby's really good because he's proactive, Duanby actually has really low stats as far as like gold share and these types of things, because that's generally what happens if you're being proactive on the map, if you're moving around the map. So the Zoe game that Bjergsen just played this last weekend, for example, he I'm sure had absolute garbage stats as far as the gold share goes and everything, because he was down farm from roaming the whole time. And the roams didn't work out, and you can criticize that and say, hey, you should have done a better job with that, or if the roams weren't going to work, you should have stayed in lane. But if you're arguing for someone to be proactive and also saying you suck because you don't have a lot of gold share, then those two things are at odds with each other.
Yeah,
Sure.
and
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say gold share also kind of works with like kills and stuff as well. Like, you know, if someone's funneling kills and you like gold share, the lowest person in the league for mid laners is Niski. You know, and he's also the most proactive roamer in the league, to Azael's point. He's constantly sacking farm in the midway to get people ahead. You interview him, he talks about this. So like, I think the gold share thing doesn't bother me too much. Neither does the DPM. They are playing long games and whatnot, but if his champ pool is influencing it, it's really important to look at that. You know, if Maokai didn't do anything, Maokai in a good game probably his DPM is not that insane either. So
sure. I mean, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, those things don't hold much water for me. I mean, the whole Bjergsen's the problem, I don't think it's true, but like, I wouldn't look to those stats to be the reason why to build my case on if I wanted
Well,
to.
let's go back to his original take, which is TSM first round exit of playoffs.
I mean, I think that's not like an incredibly hot take. They're 6-6 halfway through the split, right? So could they lose in quarters? I think with the level that they showed this weekend, they could 100% lose in quarters. I had felt like they were really making some strides. I think that they have shown that they're kind of more hot and cold though, right? It's like 2 a week, 0-2 a week, and I think that they're having some recurring issues that are more concerning. You know, you're less willing to give, I guess, forgiveness or whatever for some of the recurring issues when you're 6 weeks into the season now. So I think a lot of it just depends how they shape up these last couple of weeks, because I think they've shown some really good games and some really poor games throughout the season, and that seems to stay pretty consistent. But I mean, they're 6-6 right now. I think if they end the split, you know, like 50-50, and they're playing around the same level that they are now, then saying that they don't go to top 4, I think is totally reasonable, right? Like there's a number of teams that I think could beat them in their current form in a best of 5.
If Bjergsen's not the problem, what is?
I mean, we're not that in tune with exactly everything going on with that team. TSM has a history of finishing strong. Sometimes they also, in recent years, have not had that.
Twitch chat is all spamming coaching staff right now.
Coaching staff.
So
I don't know. You want to say something?
I was just gonna say the stuff with the draft, like, so partially, like, I know at least publicly, and sometimes what is said publicly and what will be told to you privately if you talk to a player is different. But at least publicly, they're saying that they just want to try things and they're experimenting with different styles. And if that is truly what is happening and people are bought in, I don't really have an issue with them experimenting with Maokai mid and trying this more difficult to execute stuff like the Pantheon Talia game where they did, you know, Talia mid and Pantheon jungle and these comps that are more hard to execute on, because if you are truly just experimenting and you're able to make to playoffs and then you can play whatever style is OP at that given time, you know, based on the meta, like it's easy to blame Bjergsen for playing Maokai mid. I actually think that comp wasn't that bad, and you know, like their top half of the map all being things that were weak early game, I think was more problematic than the pick in isolation. You know, it's like you have Kale Sedge wanting Maokai top side where you're not gonna be able to do anything early game. I think maybe, you know, you have some proactivity. Like if you have Olaf paired with the Maokai, all of a sudden you could actually have gank assist and punish people early on, things like that. And tanks are getting stronger and stronger. So it's like if tanks are going to be able to become playoffs, well then hey, maybe it's nice that Bjergsen's actually practicing this stuff.
Yeah, I think you can make a point that by trying so many weird things, you are spending so much time learning that stuff that you lose out on fundamentals. It was something I raised as a potential problem on JLXP, and I think that's something that on the outside we will have a hard time determining because we're not seeing the 95% more games that they play over the week in scrims, and we don't get to hear the comms and whatnot. So I'm sort of on the same page. I think the getting eliminated in the first round heavily comes down to matchups, because right now there's 3 good teams and there's not a 4th. There's Team Liquid, who's going to be good. They're improving. There's FlyQuest, and then there's C9. And if TSM finish 4th, then they play 5th. And if 5th isn't good, like, you know, Dig or Golden Guardians, or 100 Thieves, whoever ends up being 5th, if they don't shape up as well, it's not like TSM's at a disadvantage, because a lot of teams are struggling in the LCS right now.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just distracted by all these. The petting zoo here.
Get yours.
League.
Yeah, go get your cat that Kobe wants.
Run out to the adoption place right now.
I spent the weekend with somebody and their cat, and it didn't inspire me to get a cat or want a cat in my home.
Do you see this?
What about a dog?
Definitely not. Dogs are even more work.
But look how cute Stitch was.
They're cute, but I don't necessarily. EGX, do you think we handled
Did you know that
conversation
love takes
around
work, Travis?
TSM? Did this
the
make
dog
you feel
takes
like
work
it's less?
It's love.
EGX, do you feel like we? Oh wait, I muted you. Sorry, because you were making you were making some random noises through your microphone. I think typing or something. But my question is, do you feel as though we addressed your Bjergsen as the problem thing, or do you still feel Bjergsen's the problem?
I mean, he's only looked comfortable on 2 champions this split, which is Syndra and the Ornn, which is like a broken champion. So, I mean, even if you compare him to someone like Power of Evil, who you would say their teams aren't really that different. I mean, like I think Mark said he put Dardoch in his first team or second team, and Broken Blade as well. I mean, when you compare the two, the only difference is, I would say, between the way the mid lane can affect the map. So I mean, I would still say the Bjergsen is like the bigger problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say that Bjergsen's play, I don't think is a problem. Whether or not Bjergsen is like a systemic problem that is like, having undue influence on how they play the game or the coaching staff or something like that, and that's a problem, I can't speak to because I don't really know. I generally think when I watch Bjergsen play that he's playing very well. I think that people were really critical of his last Zoe game, but are quick to forget his absolute pop-off Zoe game earlier in the split. I still think that individually he plays well. I've been a little bit surprised about how no one talks about their bot lane at all. I think their bot lane is solid, but it's kind of interesting because I felt like Sven got flamed all the time when he was on TSM for doing nothing,
Yeah.
and I feel like Kobbe is just Sven on TSM. It's literally the same. There's almost no difference, right? And
Sure.
Kobbe is a consistent team fighter in the late game. He's not making a massive amount of mistakes, but isn't that exactly what Sven did? So I'm kind of not saying that he is at fault, but it was just interesting to me that I haven't seen any TSM fans really attacking Kobbe, but kind of blasting Sven for playing the same way. I think that one of the things that I did really like about TSM is how they're playing around topside, and I think that as a result, your mid lane is going to be emphasized somewhat less. Like most of Daruk's time is spent around playing with Broken Blade and playing around topside, and I think Bjergsen has had a number of picks that are sacrificing for the team, and also a number of games where he's roaming and sacrificing waves to play for the team. And if that's the game plan, and your teammates are not then making use of those advantages, then it's not necessarily on you. But like he's played Zillion, he's played multiple tanks mid, he's playing all these games where he's roaming constantly in top lane. So it's like maybe that's a game plan issue, or maybe that's an execution issue. But still, individually, I do think he's good. But I think as far as them getting knocked out first round, it's possible.
EGX, thanks so much for calling. Anything you want to say before we move on to a break?
Shout out to Alienware.
Thank you so much. Have
Thanks.
a good one. Speaking of Alienware, Azael, feel free to go grab a drink. Mark, I would say interact with your cats, but you do that all the time anyway. Because it's time for us to talk about Alienware. Yes, our sponsor for the show. Sponsor for so many things. I'm surrounded by Alienware things in my home right now, and I gotta say I'm very happy about that. I gotta say it's fantastic. Right now they are giving away. Let me just make sure that they're still doing it. It should be alienware.com/Travis. Alienware.com/Travis. You head over there right now, and you'll see a big banner at the top that says "Enter for a chance to win an Alienware 25 gaming monitor and the new Aurora R9." Do me a favor. Go to that link, because if you go to that link, I'm going to look really good. All right. And that's really what we need to be man-maxing around. And as a bonus to that, you might win a monitor and a desktop. Enter the giveaway. Do me a favor. It's got an i9-9900K in it, RTX 2070 Super, an SSD. It's a beautiful thing. Plus their monitor is a 240 hertz display. They've got a bunch of cool stuff over there. Maybe you won't win, so maybe you should go buy some stuff. Go take a look at their stuff. Even if you don't decide to buy, just clicking through the link and checking out their stuff is actually very helpful for me. We're actually working right now. I don't know if I should be saying this. This is a bit of a secret, but it's more of a big deal for me than it is for you guys. But this whole page, this alienware.com/Travis page, soon it's going to have a picture of me on it. And maybe a video. It's going to feel very Travisy, which I think will only make all of you want to visit it more frequently. It's You okay over there, Mark?
I don't want to go to an Alienware site if your face is on it.
Mark, they sponsor us, and we need the money so I can pay you.
Oh, I love them. I'm just saying I don't love you. You don't buy Kobe a cat.
I don't know if it's a good idea for us to have a cat right now. Look, speaking of cat, there's a cat. Azael just brought a cat. Look, all I'm saying is I don't want to talk about cats. I want to talk about Alienware. Alienware.com/Travis. You can also save 10% off on your order. Travis 10 off at checkout. It's fantastic. They do a bunch of cool stuff for League of Legends. I know I've been talking about this before. I know you guys have heard this whole spiel before, but I just, it is really phenomenal, the stuff that I'm able to do because of their support. And all the content that you watch would not be possible without them. So thank you so much to Alienware for supporting Hotline League. Go check out alienware.com/Travis. And pretty soon, by the way, I'm going to hook up Avali with a computer. That's one of the things that we're talking about, an Alienware computer. Her and I have been chatting about that. So either way, thanks everyone. I like the dog is just hanging out there too.
That's because they're great animals.
There's 3 animals on the screen. Let's move on to the next caller, shall we? This cat for Kobe thing is just it's gone a little far. Wild Times, thank you for the tier 1. Mac to Ace, tier 3. Love to see it. 4 months in a row. Simba Kid, Easy Stay Safe, and Hooge. Thank you everyone for your subs. Feel free to get some subs in, everybody. You gotta love to see it. Wild Z is here. Wild Z, where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm calling from Friendswood, Texas.
From Texas? Where in Texas?
Friendswood.
Where's that?
It's a little kind of Hobunk Mormon town near Houston.
Okay. Are you going to try to go to finals?
I will be, absolutely.
Okay, nice. Oh, it's near a place called League City, Friendswood is.
Yes.
And I really wish we had spring finals in League City, because that just seems like such a great place to have the League of Legends finals.
True. If only there was space in League City. It's actually pretty small.
It's pretty small. I'm looking at it right now. It looks like
they might have been able to make it work. I don't know.
Okay, whatever. What do you want to talk about?
All right, so I've got it written, so there will be no qualms. All right, due to the tragic and unforeseen events due to the coronavirus and lack of practice by LPL and now LCK, international events will not matter this year, even if they show up. And a Western win at MSI or Worlds this year will be on the same level as the Fnatic Worlds win.
Oof. I'm hard to disagree with that. I think the fact that they haven't played as many stage games, I think affects MSI a bit. I think that they are still practicing 24/7. The LPL teams are still grinding. They are now doing like online scrims. LPL is going to be resumed online. I don't think it actually makes much of a difference personally. They did have a couple weeks that they missed, but they also go on holiday for I excuse me if I'm wrong. I want to say it's like a month. It's a really long time for Chinese New Year, so they didn't miss as much as I think people think. And they're gonna have an entire summer split plus most of a spring split to play. LPL plays an enormous amount of games. I still think those teams are going to be just as high level as they normally would be. So I mean, I don't think it's comparable at all to the Fnatic season 1 because they didn't even have a server at that point, right? It's like I think it's pretty hard to compare. I think the MSI one is more of a reasonable take, but comparing Worlds to Fnatic season 1, I don't think that makes sense.
You almost got me because I love complaining about season 1 and calling it Worlds. So you want me to, you kind of have me, but I agree with Isaac. Hearing him say, how bad it was back then, that it's still not that bad because at least they have their own server and league to practice on. That said, I do think for me, I would have to take these with a massive grain of salt and an asterisk depending on when those leagues can start back up again. I'm kind of sad because I feel like I'm really excited about Cloud9 and how good I think they are. But if I'm being honest, and they go to MSI and they win, I would put an asterisk on it personally. I'd be like, yeah, that's kind of sus. I would also then, depending on what happens with Worlds, if they get a full summer split to feel pretty good and like practice and stuff, I might not want the asterisk, but it definitely depends on when those leagues start back up. Just because I feel like it would have to be, because of how I've looked at other things in the past, it would be unfair if I did not cast a critical eye to those wins as well, which sucks really, really badly. But I don't think it means that they're worthless and they don't mean anything, but I think you do have to keep the relevant context in mind that, yeah, they didn't play a grueling schedule where they're grind lording potentially. Like, I don't know what the vibe is like there because, I can't imagine exactly what it's like, but when you're playing week over week in front of people and there's like this pressure of not wanting to look like shit as you play and stuff, like there's an extra intensity and urgency in your practice and stuff that might be hard to replicate if you're just doing online scrims and
you don't know when the league's going to start back up. I think that's probably the big uncertainty is like how seriously are you going to take this when you don't know if you're going to be playing again in the next couple of months.
Right, like I'm going to need to learn on this patch.
Yeah, but they already announced that they were going to be playing.
No, I know, but I'm talking about for the past. You mentioned they've been practicing against each other for quite some time.
Yeah.
Like 3 weeks ago, before they knew, like how to Mark's point, how seriously were they taking those practice games when they didn't know if this was going to start back up again anytime soon?
Yeah, and even though they some of this practice was online and you could watch it, like it still is. It's not the same, I think. And I don't know.
Not to mention, you saw the LCK announcement, right?
Yep.
2 hours ago, LCK delayed due to coronavirus.
I buy the argument more for MSI, and I'm much more on page that as of now, like there would be an asterisk on MSI, but I think if they have a full summer split, I think it's a normal worlds, and I think if you win, you won, and it's a tough take for me because it's also like if people are going into worlds and MSI thinking about it like that, then it's lose-lose for Western teams because even if you win, people say, "Oh, well, didn't matter. It's shit." And if you lose, then it's like, "Oh, you're fucking even more trash. You lost to these teams that didn't even have a full year. You guys suck."
That does suck.
I'm kind of right there with you. That's why I feel like the take for me kind of hurts. And I'll admit the Worlds thing. Yeah, definitely, probably too far out to be saying that. But as someone that's like been a super big C9 fan and is like super excited from the go, it does kind of feel like a bit of a feels bad that if they show up at MSI and it's in these kind of scenarios, it might make their successes look a little bit less.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that part really sucks. I will say though, there will be people that will detract from success regardless of the situation in which it happens, right? And I think if you're a big C9 fan and C9 goes to MSI and they win, you're gonna enjoy it, right? And if someone on Reddit says it doesn't matter, who cares? Like when TL made it to finals at MSI, so many people say, "Oh well, it doesn't matter. It's just RNG. Like you're just lucky that you beat IG. Like then you got shit on by G2. The loss against G2 is really how good you are, and the win against IG is just IG being bad, not you being good. You still suck, right? So people are going to detract no matter what. People detract from the EU teams making it to finals, saying, "Well, you never beat an LPL team. You always just get shit on by LPL. You're still clearly not that good." So people are going to have detractions from success, I think, no matter what happens, unless you absolutely slam everybody for a really long time. But I still think we should enjoy success if it happens, and I think EU fans should enjoy success if it happens, and you should be proud of the accomplishment.
Yeah, and I would say also, nothing triggers those people worse than pretending, or like not even pretending, but just being like, "Yeah, I don't care. We still won." And they'll be
true.
As someone who gets triggered, I know you sort of typing up these little like, "No, you don't understand this, and this," and then you're just like, "Yeah, no, we still won. Too bad. Get good."
Yeah, that's what I did with Team Liquid making it to finals last year.
Yep.
I think, by the way, that if C9 wins MSI, guess who has no excuse?
Doublelift?
What? I don't even know. LEC. LEC, I think, wouldn't have a great excuse for losing it, right? So it's
people would, because there's always excuses. It doesn't, like, that's my point, right? Imagine a world in which C9 gets the easier semifinal or whatever, right? LEC has to play the other team and then loses them. You can still have people saying, "Oh well, the team just played bad against C9 in the finals, and that's why I lost them, and they played good against us in the semis, that's why we lost them." You know what I mean? Like there's always a way that you can have an excuse. So I just think that stuff just doesn't matter because fans are going to believe that their team earned it, and detractors are going to believe that they didn't. And I think that that's true of all regions to the other regions, right? So I just think you should just enjoy it if it happens.
Wild Z, any final thoughts or anything you want to shout out before we move on?
I've got a couple of things. It's not going to be long, promise. I just want to say, first of all, thank you for honoring my relatively bad take. I really appreciate that. And also shout out to Alienware and shout out to my Twitter at times. That is all. Thank you. Keep that head shiny, Kobe.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Did he mean Kobe or did he mean me?
I don't know. That was the confusing
Does he
thing
think
for me.
I'm Kobe?
I think he probably just flubbed his final sign off.
Oh.
He had it for 95%, but he didn't stick the landing.
I mean, the whole cat for Kobe thing makes a lot less sense if I'm Kobe because I have 2 cats, you know? That's where it really all falls apart for me.
So we already have cats for Kobe.
Yeah.
Problem solved. Let's just end it. Everything. All right.
Whoa!
I like nihilism. Whoa!
I like nihilism more than I like this fucking cat campaign. I'll tell you that much. The cat campaign is maybe making me a nihilist.
Let me give you a little secret. I'll let you in on some secret info. The cat campaign is so great because of how much you dislike it. That's what fuels us.
I tried to ignore it for the first couple of weeks, and then people kept going with it. I honestly I don't even know at this point in time if Sam actually wants a cat. Like,
yeah, I don't know if he wants a cat either, but I know that you don't want a cat, and that's enough for me.
Con is here. Con, remind me where you're calling from.
I am calling from Boise, Idaho.
Boise, Idaho. That's right. What do you want to talk about in the show tonight?
So, I think after watching the games this weekend, I think especially based on what we saw from Team Liquid, that they should be considered back the favorites of winning the LCS this spring. A few reasons why I think that is, first, they had a weekend where they had 1 death the whole entire weekend. They would have perfect gamed the second game against 100T if Wyoming just didn't take a tower top and gave up somewhere else in the map. But a couple other big reasons I have is I think experience in playoffs is a big factor. Cloud9's doing very well right now, but there's a reason why I think the last time a team without an LCS champion won the LCS was probably original Cloud9 in season 3, first season of the LCS. But also, I think their record is very, very unimpressive given just how bad the LCS is this year.
So, if just I'm gonna nitpick, and then if you answer that, then I'll answer the rest. If Cloud9 being 12-0 is unimpressive because the LCS is not very good, what does that mean about TL's record, right? Why is it more impressive for them to be 6-6 or whatever they are? Yeah, 6-6 now versus 12-0.
I don't think that it's more impressive right now. I think a lot of you look at their losses. Obviously, they had the Zenith obsession that they got to keep trying to play Senna and lose with it. That's half their losses at least. Obviously, you have the Broxa missing and coming into the team in the middle of the season, something that a team like Cloud9 or other teams have been boot camping them beforehand. But I also don't take very much stock in the regular season. I think, how many times have we seen teams go 17-1, 16-2?
Twice.
Exactly twice.
Twice. Twice ever.
The other team that went 16-2 won the split.
Yeah. And TSM won when they went 17-1 as well.
Good. Okay, fine. Good counterpoints. But I just don't take value in the regular season as much in these best of ones when you play best of fives down the road. I haven't seen a best of 5 series where Licorice can stand up to Impact and win.
I mean, I'll give you credit for that. You know, it is the regular season. TL did start late. I think some of the other points are kind of weak though.
Yeah. So, I mean, I basically I could accept saying, that you think TL could beat Cloud9 by the end of the season. I think that's a take that I would be more willing to entertain. If you want to take the stance of okay, they were missing their intended starting roster, and they've only had Broxa for a little bit, and damn, they looked really fucking good this weekend after not that long, right? If that is the argument and that is the basis for saying, okay, they're going to continue improving at this rate, and then by the time playoffs comes around, they're going to be the best, and they could be Cloud9, I am more willing to entertain that, but I just don't see a world in which Cloud9 is not the current favorite when they have absolutely shit on every team 12 straight times.
Yeah. I think they are so good. I think it's interesting too, because Team Liquid, while they have a lot of things that they will improve on and get better at, they never looked this dominant either in any of their 4 splits during the regular season. Like you said, that's not best of 5. Teams can have better play styles for best of 5s or whatever. But we haven't seen this level of dominance from Team Liquid during the regular season ever. If you're even trying to find when they were at their best.
And they've happened to win how many LCSs in a row with their team?
They haven't won in a long time, obviously, right?
Yeah, I wasn't saying C9 was dominant. I was saying Team Liquid was dominant. Like, this C9 has looked better than Team Liquid has in the past 4 years.
But I think there's been teams in the regular season that's looked better than TL going into the playoffs and still lost.
Right, that's exactly what we said before. There's 2 instances of that, and there's also some instances where they did win. So yes, it's very fair to point out the importance of best of 5 compared to best of 1, but it's equally just as fair to also say, yeah, but you got to be careful just assuming that, because they are really, really, really good, and TL has looked very bad at points this split.
Yeah, I think what's interesting to me is, if you want to discredit C9 based off of it being best of 1s, I think it's interesting because your take is TL is back and they're the favorites. If you were to say people are betting too highly on C9 based off of the fact that it's best of 1s and there were all these things, then that kind of makes sense. But your stance isn't just that people are overhyping C9's chances. Your stance is TL's chances are higher. And I think that's kind of the thing that I have a hard time struggling with here, is like, it's strange to me to see just based off of this past week and say like, okay, well, TL has a better chance than C9.
And you're forgetting the most important point, which is tactical is better than Doublelift.
Tactical played very well this weekend. He should be somebody that TL hangs on to. I saw a lot of people say he should be in the LCS next split or something if Doublelift comes back and takes a role and he gets healthy. But I think TL should definitely hang on and use him for trade value down the road. I think they should replicate what C9 did. But I also think...
Or start him next year if they can't keep Peter.
Or
his
that.
Contract ends.
Or sell
contract
Peter
ends
off
at the
right
end
now.
of... What's that?
What?
Do we have a TL caller, Mark?
This is the TL caller in some
way.
way.
Well, I mean, if so, then I feel like we should obviously dive in on the tactical stuff.
I think selling Doublelift off to a team doesn't have a good history for the team that sells them.
True.
Well, they wouldn't be selling him. So
that was just what
contracts work, where you have them for a period of time.
Mark was saying
at the end,
now.
You have to get somebody again.
I say you just eat that contract. TL's got the money. Contract prison.
Yeah. I mean,
what does that mean?
I think
you're actually going to confuse people, Mark. You're going to think that somehow TL could just keep him under contract indefinitely.
At least for the rest of the year. Don't sell him to...
Yeah. But I'm talking about at the end of this year, like, the joke I was making, kind of not a joke, is like, the idea that people are like, oh yeah, they can trade tactical at the end of this year. Much like, everybody was talking about Bjergsen last year, people should be starting to wonder, is TL going to be able to hold on to Peter at the end of this year because his contract is up? And so if you are sitting, like, same thing happened with like Smithy, right? Like, before his contract was up, or his contract, like, he didn't get kicked from TL. It was a world where he was going to become a free agent, and they decided to move elsewhere because they couldn't get him to re-sign before the start of the off season. So that's kind of what I'm getting at here, is like, maybe tactical is an option for them if they can't keep Doublelift.
I don't know if you feel this way, Mark, right now, but Azael, I feel like Travis is really trying to like do Doublelift's work right now and say like, hey, all these teams, start thinking about offering me this big contract right now.
If I was a team, I wouldn't be offering Peter a big contract right now.
Oh shit! Friendship ended with Doublelift.
I'd be setting tactical a contract. Let's go.
People are reading so much into this whole Doublelift thing, I think. I don't even think individually he was very bad throughout.
Yeah. So okay. So let's talk about it.
Games.
All right. So we did this on JLXP, which I thought was a nice way of framing it. Which is it's something, it's nothing, or it's everything. I didn't really say those in the right order, but like there's nothing there to like the Team Liquid look their best without Doublelift. That's everything, which is that like tactical is just straight up better, or it's something. There's something there that they looked better without Doublelift for some reason, right? What is it for you between those three categories?
It's nothing.
For me, I have two. Oh, I'll let Azael go through.
I mean, I just think it's nothing. I think that, you know, two games on one weekend after this guy has basically just won every championship in North America for God knows how many years, been in every final no matter what team he goes to. He's been the best bot laner in North America for so long. I think it's absolutely nothing to one weekend, a team having a 2-0 weekend. Doublelift almost always has a 2-0 weekend for how many years straight, right? I just think it's garbage. I don't think it means anything. And I think it's more likely to do with, and I got more of an impression after the Broxa interview, that it was to do with Broxa saying, "Hey, guess what? I'm finally not jet lagged. I'm actually not tired. I'm having time to practice with my team, and 4 of the 5 pieces are the same as what they are going to be. The one piece doesn't actually make that big of a difference because everything else was there, and we're getting good practice, and we won our games because of that, right?" Like,
somebody needs to make that Shaq meme where his eyes are closed and his eyes are open with Broxa with jet lag. I think that would be fantastic. But no, okay. Let me ask you this, Azael. Do you think right now, like, let's say Doublelift comes back this week and feels great, you know, for week 7. Do you feel as though he should feel he has something to prove?
I think he should feel like he has something to prove. I think the whole team should feel like they have something to prove. I don't think it's a specific thing. You have a fucking all-star team and you're 6-6. That's absolute garbage. That's embarrassing. I actually think that all of Team Liquid should be embarrassed at their record. I think that they should be embarrassed at their record whether Broxa was there or not. Because guess what? Broxa was missing. Oh, you only have 4 of 5 of the best players in the whole league? Man, that sucks, right? Like, you look at any other roster. Like, people are like, oh, but they don't have Broxa. You have Jensen, Impact, Doublelift, and Core JJ. Like a double MVP bot lane. One of the best mid laners ever in North America. A world championship top laner. Put me in jungle and I would expect them to do better than they did. Like, they should definitely be embarrassed. But that's not Doublelift. That's your whole team played garbage. And I think partly that's just saying, oh, well, when Broxa comes, it'll be fixed. So it's not my fault.
But at the same time, they then play with 4 out of 5 without Doublelift, and they looked fantastic.
So my something that I had was basically in line with the Azael's nothing, and that I think the something that we saw this weekend, and that was the difference, was Broxa finally looked like he was at home, and he is at home in the jungle with Liquid, and that their teamwork has kind of came together with him. He didn't feel like a kind of plug-in pace jungler like he has kind of the last couple weeks. I also, one thing that a lot of people are saying on Twitter, everywhere else like that, is that people like Impact, Doublelift, obviously Brock's in there, they've put a lot of energy both into solo queue in areas where they haven't been in earlier this season. And Azael's right, they should be embarrassed. It was, as a TL fan, I was like disgusted at the beginning of the season.
So I'll put myself in the something camp. To disagree, and I don't want to get too much into it because I'd rather save this argument for the better
Put
podcast.
yourself in the everything camp.
Say it now. This is the Doublelift. If you're going to have a Doublelift take, which fucking show do you think makes more sense to talk about that take on? The Travis Gafford Hotline League show or the Dive?
On their content where you can just hear Doublelift admit that he didn't give a fuck. Which... I'll be honest, if I was a teammate in that situation, I would not be happy. And from what I understand, from like kind of talking to some people, the team was kind of, they did have a couple like come to Jesus moments with Doublelift about like after the Golden Guardian games in particular, you know, we talked to the coaching staff and they said, yeah, we pulled him aside and like, we had to be like, okay, dude, you actually need to step up. And I think there is something there about playing without Doublelift. I'm sure a lot of people could be like, look, we're really great. And they wanted to prove that. And so the something isn't necessarily their tactical is better or they're better without Doublelift. But I would speculate that there was some extra motivation to win this weekend for some of those combinations of wanting to prove themselves, maybe not being thrilled that one of their teammates is admitting that they don't give a shit on air. Like I can't I think we heard the coaches say that Doublelift is not the team. The team is not Doublelift. There's other people involved, so like I wouldn't be surprised if there were over the course of the beginning of this split some tensions that change the mentality going into this weekend beyond let's hope we pick up 2 wins with this sub because if we don't, we're in deep shit. If we end up with another 0-2 weekend or something.
Yeah, I think I would say something to go with your Jet idea. And I would actually say you're right, Azael, that everybody needs to prove something, but I think Peter will and should feel very much like he has to prove something going into this coming weekend. Assuming his throat is better and everything, which I think it's safe to assume because laryngitis is not, you take antibiotics you get in a week. I think, look, people are like down on him right now because of his I'm not going to, spring split doesn't matter type thing. The team was sucking. It has been what Jet had some statement on air about how TL is no longer Doublelift and friends. I think it's good for Peter whenever people are thinking about TL as Doublelift and friends. And the fact that they walked out there without him and got a 2-0 week and looked maybe the best they have the whole season, that's gotta feel bad. And this is the guy who for the past 2 years has been number one player in the league. I mean, obviously not always getting MVP or whatever, but you get my point. Just lauded. And right now I think there's a lot of people who are downing him. Now, obviously he's my friend. I believe in him a lot. I think he's going to bring it. I think this type of stuff is huge motivation. I'm not saying the Doublelift days are done. Tactical is now my new interview buddy. But I do think that if you are Doublelift and you've seen how this was a very unlucky split for him to boldly say spring split doesn't matter. And I think he was doing that more because everybody hones in on that statement. It's not I don't think he was saying it I don't give a shit about league esports or something like that. I think he was saying it more because his frustrations around the format change. So he was trying to start a discussion around that.
I mean,
but it just was such a bad split for him to be quoted saying that.
I haven't spilled tea in a while, but there was everyone was boot camping on their own because they didn't do a big old team boot camp, and the players, were kind of checking in with each other about how many games they were playing, on their accounts. And I think this might even actually be public. I don't even know if I'm spilling anything. Doublelift played 4 games in a week or something at one point, which was less than Broxa played in the morning before LCS time. And I think, Core J, I forget who was dueling together, but they were spamming and shit. It was he wasn't trying. Let's be honest, he wasn't trying. You can blame the format changes or whatever, but he wasn't trying. I think he already had a fire lit under him after the Golden Guardian game and whatnot. And I think he's going to get better. He's going to improve. And whether it's a chicken or the egg argument, we'll never know if he would have gotten better without these external conversations going on, the tactical situation and what happened with Keith and whatnot. We'll never be able to prove that this was the motivation that made him great again, or whatever. So it's all kind of a moot point, I think, in the end. But I do think internally in the team and stuff, this all is helping them from where they would have been if these things didn't happen. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think he even said that it's better to have these struggles now than at the end of the split. In some sense, it's good that they came in, they sucked without Broxa, then Broxa showed up and they were still losing, and then they really had to come to terms with that. They were not approaching it right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I really am strongly of the opinion that TL was just blaming everything on Schernfire because Schernfire was there, things weren't going well, and Brox is coming, so Brox is the light at the end of the tunnel. Therefore, I don't have to fix any of my own problems because they're not my problems. It's because Schernfire sucks.
Yeah,
and
I know they were doing that too.
Yeah, so I think that was just a really easy scapegoat. I think it really sucks for Schernfire because he gets a pretty negative reputation out of it, and I think that it put TL behind that many weeks. And if they had been working on their own individual issues, the second that Broxah stepped foot on the Rift, they like with them, they should have been godlike, right? And I don't think that happened.
Well, anyway, we have a couple more callers, so we need to move on. But
I've got a take now.
Ooh, hit it!
What's your take?
Okay, so here's my take, and it was reminded me of because this whole spring split doesn't matter thing. I think that spring split does matter. That the fact that it doesn't matter is an absolute garbage take. That if you as a pro think that it doesn't matter and that you don't have to try hard, you are never going to be really successful. You're never going to be like a world champion or reach the actual top, because if succeeding in LCS doesn't matter, if making playoffs doesn't matter to you, if winning a fucking championship doesn't matter to you, if making a fucking $1 million a year as a top pro in this region doesn't matter to you, if going to fucking MSI and winning that doesn't matter to you, guess what? You don't have it. You're not actually cut out to be the best. And I think that is an absolute trash take. And people that have that attitude will never be the best. And people that have that attitude will not succeed at the highest levels, because you have to be able to motivate yourself and you have to be driven to succeed and to be the best. And that is not contingent upon fucking, spring split having world's implications. That is contingent upon you having the work ethic and the drive to go after it every day.
Azael, don't you feel like you should have actually competed in something or have some sort of experience professionally?
Yeah, I don't know if
you can know.
Give a championship mindset.
Yeah,
because...
True.
Sorry, you go.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say something that I watched a lot of basketball documentaries, and like Larry Bird, what he used to do was he would look up box scores from Magic Johnson every time that they played, and he would look up what he was doing. And he would go into buildings and he'd be like, get me the record for the most 3-pointers hit in this building, And he would give himself these little challenges and these little things to be like, man, fuck it. I need motivation to want to win or like do these things. And he would like jazz himself up and like work himself into a frenzy, like shit talking people. Like he was a huge shit talker to like make rivalries. He would do whatever it took to like get himself invested. Whether that's comparing himself to people, making people mad at him, or trying to break records, whatever it was, like Larry Bird would just like do whatever he could to find motivation.
Yeah, I mean, you need to have a goal every single day. I truly believe if you want to be the best in the world at something, it is so egotistical to think that you can not work hard and not try and, not actually be grinding at it and trying to constantly improve and still be the best, right? There are millions of people around the world that are playing this game and trying to be improving, trying to be really, really good at it. And you look at how hard some people are grinding in LPL and LCK and LEC, etc., really everywhere. So it's like, if you are not going to be putting in more work than the person who is putting in the second most amount of work, why should you be better than them?
I don't want to spoil my interview with Niski, but because he's in chat, it's funny because we were talking about this. What you're saying right now, Mark, and Azael reminds me of the conversation I just had with him, where I said to him, frequently in North America, we have one front runner team, and they often complain about how, speaking of Peter, he's complained about this with TL, where it's like you don't have as many. You don't have as good a competition as maybe you could have in other regions, right? Like, how do you improve when you're just stomping everybody? And one of the things that I thought was really cool that Niski was talking about was that sometimes in scrims lately, they've been going in and just being like, well, he jokingly said, maybe we'll all just try not to die at this game. But he said that they haven't done that, but they've done certain things like, can we just have, can we get all the dragons and make sure that they don't get any dragons or whatever? Like, I think it was cool to hear him say that C9 has they're on such a high level that in scrims they have to come up with ways to make it more difficult for themselves. But also just that they're striving still to figure out, how can we make sure that we're improving every game, even if it's in just these specific areas.
And I know Jack did an interview with Gabby on Monday Night League just about how like 18-0 isn't the goal. And I understand it shouldn't be the goal and what you're planning around, but I hope they want it. I hope that they're like psyching themselves up to shit on everyone to get closer and closer and do what no one's ever done in North America and be the second Western team to go 18-0. Like, I think that should be a goal in the sense that like it's a motivator. Can we do it? Even if you're not going to game plan around peaking at week 18 or week 9, excuse me.
Do you believe that that's not a goal for them? Because I don't believe for a second that every player on that team doesn't want that so bad. I don't believe it. I don't believe that at all. I think it's just something you say.
I think it's something you say, but I also do think it's true that like you're not planning around that, maybe in the sense where like if you were trying to be your best, you probably would experiment a little less. And they're like, I don't think maybe, and this was also earlier in the season, so maybe they'll stop doing, but like I don't think you pick Morg mid there if you want to, get like put your best foot forward, because that it's probably a strat they played with. I'm sure it's good. I don't doubt that the Morg mid Camille top is good and can win and whatnot. But just like if I was trying to try hard and all I care about was 18-0, Niski's playing Zoe every game. I think it's his best champ. He looks fucking god tier on Zoe. You're playing Zoe every game. It's not banned, and like you're playing this and you're playing this and you're playing this, and we're running it. So like I do agree with that. It's probably not a goal in that sense, but everyone wants it.
This game chat says no one cares about 18-0. I will end the last game of the season.
Also,
Right.
I can see a world where Cloud9 going into the last week having number 1 seed locked up, just put their academy team in. Especially if TL is on the rise.
If they are 16-0, there is no way they are putting their academy team in. You're trolling me right now.
No,
you think Jack is going to be like, even if Jack says we're not actually thinking about 18-0, you think he's going to be like, lol, academy.
If I was a player on that team, I'd be like, fuck you, put me in. I'm not letting you ruin my record.
Yeah,
I literally think, especially if TL's on the rise, that the strategically smart thing would be, hey guys, take the week off. Let's not go toe-to-toe against TL, and let's wait to playoffs to face them. Because think about the mentality. Let's say they go in that last game, 17-0, they go against TL, and you lose that game in like a stomp or something, you're now going into playoffs thinking, damn, like,
think about really, the mentality of something you worked for all split long and you have the chance to make history and having that taken away. Think about what that does to your mentality then.
C9 players don't historically do well when they get benched. They don't tend to be happy about it. Con, thank you so much for the call. Is there anything you want to shout out or say before we move on to our next caller?
Oh, just that I agree with Azael on that part. Back in the day, I said the best thing for NA would be just leaving Worlds altogether. And I think this split is the exact reason why, because everybody is only focused on Worlds and not on the everyday type thing. Oh, and your camera's gone, Travis.
I know. All right, well, thanks so much for calling in, Con, and I appreciate the call. All right, Mark, you want to grab the next person while I find a battery, and Azael just fills for time.
All right, we gotta start moving quicker. We got 4 people
left.
Yeah.
Azael is a professional commentator. Feel free to just talk. Go.
Sure. I guess I was gonna say, I think that with the 18-0 thing, I understand that not being the goal. Your goal should be the best possible team, right? And I think that people aren't going to lose sleep over not going 18-0. I mean, I guess I can speak for myself. I always cared about doing that kind of stuff. Like if that's not the end goal, it shouldn't be what you're focusing on or talking about. But I mean, I sure as hell wanted to go into every single game I ever played professionally and stomp the other team. And wanted to have as good of a record as I ever could in every tournament I played in. It's like you weren't doing that at the expense of improving or at the expense of your long-term goals. But I think that almost every competitor wants to win, right? That's why you're good. That's what motivates most people.
Maximus Aries is here. Maximus, where are you calling from?
Cleveland, Ohio.
Cleveland, Ohio. What do you want to talk about on the show?
I think Vulcan's the MVP of the spring split, and I think that his ability to team fight appeal for his team will really help them come international play, because I think internationally teams are a little more aggressive than they are in North America. And I think that C9 really excels at peeling back to a fight and then re-engaging once the burst potential from the engaging team is gone, and that allows them to be more proactive with their macro.
Well, it's probably somebody on C9, and we had a call a while ago that explained that Niski's the least valuable player on the team. So I can definitely agree that it's not Niski. But talking about Vulcan, what do you guys think of that take?
I think it's a pretty reasonable take. I think that right now, I think anyone on Cloud9 could probably win MVP. You could make an argument for any of them. I don't think it would be a real shocker. All of their team is playing really well. I think Vulcan is someone who coming into this season was really underrated. He's someone that I was really impressed with last year, and that I think a lot of pros had a high opinion of. So I think he is now kind of getting his rightful due as some attention and some some more fans and everything, coming into the split and being on a big org and being surrounded by really good players and being able to kind of show what he has, because I do think he has been great. And as far as you talking about their team fight specifics, I think one of the fun things to do with Cloud9 games is actually watching how each individual player is playing out the team fights, and they really do excel, I think, in these kind of like split team fights where they're having individual skirmishes and each player is kind of individually playing it very well, and it's pretty cohesive too. So I think that is one of the more impressive things about them.
We have Niski and Sven in chat. I'm going to ask, give a player on your team MVP, and it can't be yourself. Who do you give it to?
While we wait for them to say that,
I'm just waiting for them to say no one. If I can't have it, no one can.
Yeah.
No, come on. You have to give an answer.
They're not going to give you a good. Sven just did like the laughing emoji, the lol.
Sven Scarin.
And Niski says Sven Scarin.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's true.
It's one of those things, man. You don't want your teammates to be like, recognized as better than you. It's gonna be held over you all year long,
Sven says blabber because jungle roll is balanced.
I'll put that on my submission.
See, that's actually the good answer. You say blabber so you can get some more ganks, and then that helps your case for MVP, because then you're going to do better, right?
It's a diplomatic.
Sven is going with the 5-head play. He's like, oh, blabber's so good. I hope blabber gets it. By the way, blabber can't for me, please.
Can we give it to Reaper? I love my coach. Let me pick what I want.
All right. Anyway, Mark, what do you think of the idea of Vulcan getting it?
I mean, he's obviously really, really good. And the best. He's going to win it all pro, assuming, things don't blow up for C9. C9 is going to get first all pro across the board, assuming, they keep this level up.
I'm going to put tactical in ahead of
I mean, that's true. But I had just support's really hard to win MVP. Yes, Core JJ did just do it last year. But I feel like part of it is also how much you stand out over the rest of your field is what people do, because they play this game, and I play this game of if I took Vulcan out and I put the second best support in, like Core JJ, how much worse is this team? And this is I feel bad with all the C9 guys in here and shit, but is C9 a worse team with Core JJ?
Probably not.
Right. So I kind of have a hard time when I do that thought experiment, not saying it's the end all be all. I think you can talk about synergy and how important it is, but they probably aren't a better team, but and then when I start playing that with other, I'm like, you put in PoE for Niski or Bjergsen for Niski, and suddenly I'm like, oh, that sounds a lot worse. Or Santorin for Blabber. Ooh, I don't know. When I start playing those kinds of games, it feels bad. And that's why I think for me, if Vulcan's probably not the leading candidate on C9. And I understand that's a feels bad man to approach it that way.
Who's your leading candidate on C9 right now?
Here's my argument against that, though.
Yeah, hit me.
So, like, I understand what you're saying, and like, I know why it feels bad to say with all the cloud guys in the chat.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, right? So, I don't think someone being close to Vulcan's skill means that Vulcan cannot be an MVP. That just
I
means
agree.
that Core JJ could also be an MVP candidate. And guess what? He won MVP, right?
Mhm.
So it's like, if you have Faker and BDD playing fucking incredible and both of them are slamming every lane, saying, "Oh, don't think Faker could get MVP this year because BDD is playing just as well," right? So I don't really buy that much. And I think, again, to give a bit of a counterpoint to some of the other stuff, is that one of the things that you're kind of like, I think, highlighting, like with Niski versus some of the other mids and stuff, is Niski's really proactive, he's really aggressive, he roams a lot, and blah blah blah, and that type of thing is like a difference in play style, not necessarily in skill level.
Yep.
So if you want to maintain the same play style within that team, then yes, you cannot swap them for someone that is more passive. But I don't think that having two people who are really fucking good invalidates someone as a
No, and
possible MVP, right?
I don't think you should. I think. Well, so first off, MVP is obviously somewhat subjective of an award, even because I'm not the kind of person who thinks MVP means the best player in the league, because otherwise there'd be a very narrow pool of people I'm willing to award that to.
Yeah.
For me, it's about performance, and what value means. Otherwise, you would just say best player of this split, like it's a fucking Oscar, best whatever.
Yeah.
It's most valuable, and that to me means performance. It's how like actual valuable you are in this kind of like theoretical economy of talent in the LCS, and that's why I do that. It's not the only thing I want to judge a player on, but that's why I'm like, in this team, who is the one that's valuable? Not necessarily their best player, but like who's the one who's really enabling them to be this great.
Yeah.
And Vulcan is really important, of course, for that. Like he's actually insanely good. He's playing better than Core JJ right now. I have no problem putting him number one. I'm not saying Core JJ could come in and take his spot, but like when you start.
But you did. But if he did, no one would notice. Is what you're saying?
Turn off the nameplates.
Maybe they're 11-1. Maybe they're 11-1.
So I'm curious then. When you talk about most valuable to a team, that to me means like then you're considering a dog shit team who only wins through like a hard carry from someone.
No,
like,
I mean,
do you still think that person could be MVP, or
I think sometimes,
because to me MVP is the best player, like who played the best that split. I shouldn't say the best player, but the best performance from that split. That's the MVP.
Because I think PoE is probably the best player. Like if you take PoE off FlyQuest, they're not 8-4 or whatever they are right now. Mm-hmm. So I think he probably provides the most value to their team.
And I think PoE is in the conversation for that reason a little bit. I know some people have talked about, okay, there's the 5 C9 guys, pick one out of a hat, they could all be the MVP. Who else is in the conversation? PoE probably is the second guy for the conversation for reasons like that.
If Broxa, if TL keeps winning, does Broxa enter that conversation because you saw what they were like before and without him?
No.
Yeah, he was player of the week. Great. How dare you?
Vulcan was robbed.
There was a time where Lyra was like hard carrying. What was it? Was it Envy or was it
Envy? Yeah, it was Envy.
Yeah, that was a time where I was like,
whatever.
Yeah, like he almost carried them. He was so good that they almost weren't in relegation. Like that sounds weird to say, but that team was bad, and it was like he almost hard carried them and saved that organization from having to play in
relegations.
Yeah, relegations. So I don't. What Niski wasn't there? Wasn't it like Ninja or something? What, I thought Lyra and Niski were not the same year. Am I confused?
Regardless, we don't have too much time. We have
right. Whatever. This is all moot. I think there's a lot of things. I don't know. Since we're playing this theoretical thing, and MVP right now, Azael, who do you give it to?
Oh God, I don't know. I think it's tough. I mean, it's someone on Cloud9 for sure.
I think so too.
I think my front runner would probably be Blabber or Niski.
It's the same for me.
But I think that it's reasonable to say that Vulcan's in. Good one.
Vulcan is definitely in the running for me.
Yep.
Maximus, thanks so much. Anything you want to say before we move on to another caller?
Vulcan was robbed and Cap for Kobe.
Cool. Anyway, moving on to the next caller. we're gonna turn and burn through these last 3 callers. We gotta go through it quick. I apologize to everybody. By the way, Azael, when you went on your giant rant earlier about how Spring Split should matter, I got 5 gifted subs from Adria because of your rant. They were that excited. So thank you to Adria, and thank you to Azael for inspiring subbing to the channel. Cat for Kobe 2. Welcome to the fucking show. Where are you calling from?
Good to be here, Travis. I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Great to have you here. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think CLG needs to get blown up in every capacity. Blow up the front office, blow up the roster, blow up the coaching staff.
I hope only have metaphorical capacities.
Yes. Don't actually put a bomb anywhere near them.
Okay.
But
anyway,
fire them all, get them out. MSG
what do
is the
you
most
keep?
incompetent ownership group ever.
What
Literally,
part of CLG continues to exist there?
I don't care. Blow it up. I spent too many years of my life cheering for this organization to be disappointed for this longer. Get it all out.
The CLG subreddit is now the GM. They can have a poll.
Honestly,
a poll to see who they hire.
If you did it to the CLG subreddit, if you gave it to the CLG subreddit, LS and Rush would be the 2 people running that organization right now.
I mean, he'd probably be better than Weldon, either of those 2. So,
there's somebody on the CLG subreddit whose name I forget that is just like really critical of Weldon and talks in every single thread, and now has made an alternate account because Weldon blocked him on his main account. I'm trying to remember the name of this person.
That's not cool.
What's that?
So that's not cool. Guy who's doing that.
Well, regardless, anyway. So elaborate on this.
Yeah. So the Madison Square Garden Group has just always been not very good at managing sports organizations. We see the Knicks have just been kind of a laughingstock, even when they have good talent for the past 20 years. It's pretty clear they either aren't willing to spend money or just are grossly ignorant towards what talent is and how to build a roster, right? So that front office needs to go. None of the players seem to be performing. Like Pope Belter looks pretty solid. Wiggly kind of, I think, was a failure of an experiment. Ruin is the worst top laner in the LCS. I don't think it's close. Smoothie's washed up, and Stixay, I mean, I could see a roster built around Stixay. He's like maybe the only person in the organization I would keep.
Is Ruin the worst? Because I feel like a lot of people have been saying Kumo in the past couple of weeks.
It's Kumo, Viper, or Ruin, and I think there's a gap between Kumo, Viper, like they're together, gap, Ruin.
Okay, I just want to say, by the way, if anybody from CLG is watching, Mark pulled this collar. I did not know. I realized that I have said the same stuff, or not the same stuff, but a similar stuff about. I've been critical of MSG, but this is not me colluding to bring these collars.
I don't know exactly what people are going to say when I pick them.
When you pick them? Oh, the collar?
Yeah. I mean, I knew it was going to be a CLG needs to burn it all down and start over. But I don't know what's going to come out of a caller's mouth.
I mean, I just continue to be disappointed in CLG as an organization. And I don't want to go back down this rant because I did this a couple of weeks ago, but it just feels bad because it feels like they've fallen so far from where they once were. And I mean that in every sense, right? Like they don't have the following, they don't have the competitive side, they don't have the engagement on their content, they don't occupy the place that they once did, and it makes me sad. And I wish that they were not doing this, and it is hard not to blame the ownership group for it.
So, devil's advocate, CLG was tied for second in summer in last split.
Yeah.
Right? They were, I can't even remember what the series score was, but they were in the last series to go to Worlds.
And what did that get them?
I mean, what did that get them? I mean, it got them a competitive season, right? You know, as far as, are you asking, what did that get them as far as like followers or fandom?
I mean, in a sense, right? It's like it's disappointing to me because they did that, but then they've just dropped off the face of the earth in this split, right? Like it feels more of an outlier for the past couple of years. They didn't build any brand off of it. It didn't really feel as though like it feels like a blip on a radar. And so it's like the sort of the lifeboat that they can cling to is like, well, we did this one thing, and yeah, it's great, but if you can't maintain that, it just doesn't look like much to me.
So I would say that it's a bit tough because it felt like they had been having this bad stretch, and I felt like they had actually started to really improve in summer, and I was kind of excited for them coming into this year, thinking that they were going to be able to build on that. And just like I'm not trying to be a CLG apologist, because I mean they're doing terrible in Academy, they're doing terrible in LCS. But that being said, I don't really buy the argument that it was obvious that this roster was going to be shit, and all these people talking about how of course they were going to be bad. Like, what are these clowns doing? Crown, when I talked to pros, even at the beginning of this split when he was already doing bad, most people told me they thought he was at least top couple mid laners in the league last split. Some pros still this split were arguing to me that Crown was the best mid laner in the league. That was a relatively recent opinion. So I don't buy that everyone saw this coming and that they should have known that of course Crown's going to be the worst mid laner in the league when people were seeing him do that well. So I don't know.
I would never say that, and I don't believe it. Right? That like the Crown pickup was a bad strategy. Losing Irene.
How can we just blast the leadership so much?
Losing Irene, I think, is the bigger thing, because I think a lot of people gave Irene a lot of credit for the success they had in the summer split of last year, and from the rumor during the offseason was that Irene didn't feel as though he was appreciated at CLG. I don't know if that was financially. I don't know if that was in title. I don't know what that was, but I feel like losing Irene was a big thing. Now, the easy counter argument that I will make is or that somebody can make is yeah, but Irene's on EG and it's not like that team is doing great either. But I don't know if that team is doing poorly because of Irene.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say, right? You don't usually get a lot of insight either way as far as coaches, and what their true impact is. Players will have their opinion, and then usually players will only give you their opinion on the coach if it's a really strong one way or the other. Usually the only time I hear something from a player about a coach is, oh my God, this guy sucks ass, or
yeah, that's true.
Or, oh my God, this coach is actually really smart. He taught me this one thing that was cool. And that's usually all I hear about coaches from players. And so CLG, I think, do they need to blow everything up? I don't know, man. It's hard to say. It does feel bad to see them go downhill so much. It does feel bad to see TSM versus CLG and feel like that was this crazy epic match, and now it doesn't feel the same. But I feel like, especially since they got Welter, it's at least looking a bit better. At least they're trying something, and didn't just stay with Crown and lose every single game and have that feel so bad. But I thought that they were going to be a pretty decent team coming into this split with the Crown pickup. I felt like that was actually going to work for them. Obviously, it didn't at all, but it's a bit tough, right? Does everything need to blow up? I don't really know. I think only the people within the organization really have any insight into what the people do on a day-to-day basis, and kind of where the fault lies is tough.
Yeah, I guess it's different for me because I know, Azael, you're looking purely at the competitive side. And for me, this is a simmering feeling that's been happening for the last couple of years, as I've just sort of seen them fall further and further from being a team that the audience cares about. And I want them to be a team that the audience cares about. And that's kind of the ironic thing, is I feel like a lot of CLG staff who might see this or saw me talk about this previously are like, Travis is just a fucking CLG hater. And the sad thing for me is I miss when CLG had a big presence in the LCS, and I just don't, and in esports in general. And I think since the Madison Square Garden acquisition, which I was initially very favorable about and very excited about and thought would be fantastic, I just have seen them slip further and further, and I don't see signs of life, and that makes me sad.
So I guess the answer would be this, right? What are the unique ways that you think teams are really getting popular? Because to me, it's either you essentially buy a superstar that's already popular, and then people are now a fan of your team because Doublelift's on it, or you win all the time, right? You have
or
one
you
of two
plant
things.
trees, or you make sick merch,
dope ass merch,
or you partner with influencers. That's part of the thing for me, is I look at a lot of these other orgs and they're doing things I don't want to say that
my
CLG...
understanding based on a lot of the stats and stuff I've seen as far as fandom stats and things like that, CLG is still top 4 or something. There's still there's like that was my understanding from a lot of the stuff is that like viewership things and whatnot is that like I've seen posts on from external websites and stuff that track viewership for teams and things like that, and CLG still does pretty well.
I saw something this offseason that showed fandom through, I think it was like one of like the purchasing things about teams and how much money they're making through the in-game store or something. I remember them being like 6th now from better, and I think the top 3 were like TSM still, and then Team Liquid and C9, and then 100 Thieves was actually 4th, and then I forget what was 5th.
Yeah, I definitely don't think CLG's in top 5, and I think it's really rough when you're not in top 5 when your competition previously was like Echo Fox falling apart and Optic, which was a goddamn shit show. And like it's just when those are the things that you're ahead of, I'm not going to give you too much credit, and I think that's what's disappointing for me is I just look at like CLG even as like a business is just, what are they doing? Like, what if one of the questions I would love to ask them is just like,
can we hang up on Travis?
Sorry, Azael challenged me on this, and now I'll just say this because I know we got to move on. It's just I look at CLG and I'm like, what are you doing that is interesting? Why should I care about you? And like FlyQuest has an answer, and 100 Thieves has an answer, and I don't even think TSM or TL or C9 have like the greatest answers, but they put up fucking results, and I wish CLG was doing something. Like I just want to ask somebody at MSG, like, what is the point of this business for you? What are you planning on doing with it? Anyway, Cat for Kobe 2. What do you want to say?
I just want to remind the chat to drink water. Shout out to Movement. Have a good night.
Good night. All right, we got 2 more callers. We're gonna go through this quick. Azael and I keep having big opinions. We got to have less big opinions. We're gonna have tiny opinions on these next 2 takes. It's gonna be great. The tiniest of opinions. John G365, Scrapjack, Dr. Stretch, Love Letters, Spencer Neutron, Osphase, They See Me Wowen, I Love You Chet, has no. Thanks for the subs. And Movement just gifted 20 subs because they are here and apparently heard somebody shout out Movement. That's actually really cool. Ahsoka, I wish I could talk more about this Movement thing, but I don't have time. I love you, Movement. Look at this watch. Ahsoka, where are you calling from?
Chicago.
What do you want to talk about on the show?
My hot take is that Evil Geniuses would be a top 3 team if they had Pobelter or Demonte instead of Jizuke.
Pobelter or Demonte instead of Jizuke. I disagree because I think they've got a lot of other problems, but go ahead.
I think this is mostly just because it seems like the cohesion problems sort of focus around there's just no teamwork. And I think with Pobelter and Demonte, like, they would just have better cohesion because Jizuke just sort of goes off and does random things at times, it almost appears like, which would help, I think, Svenskeren to sort of do more about the map.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to interrupt what you just said. I just have to say, Movement in the chat literally just wrote, funny enough, we sponsored CLG briefly, not our best decision. I have never seen anything like that before. All right, let's move on. Okay, so Azael and Mark, what do you guys think of this take? Replace Jizuke with an NA mid laner.
Honestly, I'm really undecided on it because on the one hand, I think the team communication and synergy and whatever you want to talk about being on the same page is clearly an issue with this team. And that part would definitely be improved I think it would be improved at least with a Demonte or Pobelter on the team. And that said, Jizuke has also usually been the best player in their wins. Like when they win, it's like Jizuke did this really well on a LeBlanc, or he played this Malzahar and set up a bunch of fights for us. And like, it could go either way. Like you put the new guy in and there's still a mess, And now you don't have this random pop-off player who's in his own world, but at least sometimes that world happens to have a W in it. Or you just, you actually get on the same page. You actually form a cohesive play style that works, and they become good. I still don't know about top 3, but I think improving is potential.
I have a bold take for this, and I know we're running a long time. I would love to see EG with. I don't think just this would work. I think you also like their top lane has been struggling, but I actually want to see if you just stuck like Apollo in instead of Bang, or you just stuck like a safe AD in instead of Bang. And I get that Bang is their best player and is the best, but I actually feel like he has a very different playstyle than the rest of them. I think Jizuke wants to go crazy and be aggressive, and I think the other players would probably rally around that faster than this kind of like safe playstyle that Bang has. Azael, feel free to tell me how I'm an idiot.
EG sneaky.
I mean, why not? They already have enough C9 players, right? But what do you think? Do you think that would potentially do something?
I don't know. I mean, I agree mostly with what Mark said as far as the Jizuke thing. I think that Jizuke, just the way he plays the game, will cost you games, but it'll also win you games. I tend to feel like he carried most of their wins, even the game, that Israel game that they had recently where they beat, who was it, TSM or someone? I can't remember.
Yeah, the Zoe game though.
Yeah, exactly. Where Jizuke, I thought hard carried on Zoe. The LeBlanc game, I thought he carried. Like, he's had some really, really good games that where I felt like he solo made the difference, and there's not a lot of those games in the LCS this year where someone just is the reason you win by themselves, almost single-handedly. And he does create that. So I don't know if getting rid of him and getting someone who's like more even keeled would actually get you to top 3, because they do have other issues, right? And I think that Kumo is maybe less exploitable than I thought, but he's still one of the bottom top laners in the league. They I think like aren't always on the same page. Maybe that's going to be fixed, but then does that make you better than TL and C9 and TSM and stuff by the end of the split is tough. Even FlyQuest right now are playing pretty well, so I think it's hard to know. And as far as if you replace Bang and you get like people more on the Jizuke page, that might make for a better team too. It's really hard to know, because even if you're good individually, if you're not on the same page, that's really problematic. And one of the things that does work for Cloud9, for example, is that it's like they go for these crazy plays, but they all go for them together. Even when they're a bad play, they go for them together, and sometimes they can outplay it and make it work, right? Or it's a shit play and it goes bad, and then they keep trying and the next one works. Like, look at the Cloud9 versus EG game where Blabber pretty much just inted 2v2 mid, and Iski's in there with him, dying too. He's like, "Oh, you want to run it down? All right, let's run it down together." Like, Bjergsen already bought. I have no ignite. I haven't bought yet. Let's take this 2v2. Let's die for this. Give up 2 kills and double buffs to Bjergsen, and then it didn't matter because they keep pushing for plays, and other people can make things happen elsewhere on the map, right? And that's fine, right? You can continually make aggressive plays if you can pull them off. So maybe they could make something like that happen. But I also just think Cloud9 can play like that because they generally just win all their lanes.
I mean, this might be recency bias, but Pobelter was like hard carrying this past weekend, though. So it's not like he can't do it.
Yep.
And also, I mean, granted they lost today, but I think he was almost like the sole reason they brought it out so long, other than the Wiggly steal.
I think he was. Sorry.
I think like almost all of like the engages that CLG had today and like the team fight wins was basically off of Pobelter's pickouts on Xmithy and whatnot with the shockwave.
I think our point is ultimately it's not really just about skill. It's like with a team that has a bunch of problems, you don't necessarily fix it just by swapping one player. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. So
it does sound like, though, with a lot of like their interviews, is that almost all the players say, yeah, it's mostly us just trying to control Jizuke. I'm not saying Jizuke's bad. It just doesn't seem like they're on the same page.
You also have Azael saying that like if Bang doesn't think that the play is right, he will run it down, true. Which is a joke, obviously, somewhat, but also there's probably where there's
Soka, I I gotta save Azael because we're way past this time. So anything you want to say as we move on to our final caller?
Just two things. One, I think even though Dash is NA's treasure, I think Tigers has been a great addition to the cast, especially for Monday Night League. And then also some more anime LCS content from Avali.
Yep. Very good. Hey, thank you so much, Osaka, for the call. I'm currently wearing my movement sunglasses. You guys can check these out. There's a link in the description below. You can save some money thanks to movement. And also for them gifting 20 subs and for gifting to Morphin TV and Sadistic Hero for 14 months. Final caller here on this overtime show. Silk, where are you calling from?
Calgary, Alberta.
Calgary, Alberta. Is that close to where you're from?
Nope.
Well, we tried. Silk, what's your take?
I think NA teams have been pretty bad at drafting so far this split, and the only team that's been somewhat good is C9.
There we go. Perfect take.
So I pulled this actually for a spin-off that I wanted to ask, which is I think people really like when teams win. And I would be curious, like, do you think C9 lost any drafts but still won? Or do you think that they've won all their drafts?
I'd have to look specifically at each C9 draft. I'm thinking more of like just general picks, I guess sort of in isolation, but not overall. But like, I don't know, I'm seeing a lot of stuff like blind picking TK and stuff like that. Early game junglers for teams that like aren't C9 or TSM, and maybe even TL that like don't add anything to how long the games are going. I can't really think of a specific C9 example that they would have lost simply because they have been so dominant.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this is my general take is that C9, I love Reaper. I think he's the best coach in the league, but I don't think that they have won every draft. And I think there are a number of drafts where if they lost, people would flame them, but they won, so who cares? Like the Morgana mid game. They would have been like, what the hell is that?
Cassio blind, Mark.
I mean, that's the second time that happened.
Yeah, like if you're gonna pick Morgana, why not pick Vigar if you want zoning?
Or some, like there's a bunch of those. Like the Elise Pantheon game, people are flaming going to all in early game. Well, if they lost that game, like is that not the same criticism basically as the TSM one?
Yeah.
So like I think they do a better job than other teams too of making sure that they had a GP that game, so it wasn't all early game, and they have some things going on and stuff like that. And I'm not even saying that those drafts are in particular bad. I just think that when you have these 50-50 drafts where one team has one win condition and one team has the other win condition, and one team wins, you go, great draft. The other one didn't do anything, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, well, yeah, because the better team won.
Azael, what's your take?
Pretty similar to Mark. I think that it's tough. Like, is there poor drafting this split? Sure, but there's some poor drafting every split in every league, and I think that the community tends to be extremely results based on their analysis with draft, and I think that's a natural thing. But it's like you see that almost every time, right? Where it's like, if Humi is gonna play Lucian top with Ignite and he loses, it's like, holy shit, like what an idiot. Why would he think this is gonna work? It's so early game, it's never gonna be a good pick. And if you play that and you actually do just like kill Licorice a couple times and you win the game off that, it's like, oh my god, this is brilliant. Like what a smart counter pick. You had to go for that kind of play. People get really, I think, kind of caught up in that and don't think enough about what the intent behind the pick was. They think only about what the pick actually did in the game, not what the pick was supposed to do in the game, right? Or the reasoning for it, right? Because you can pick an Elise and you can flame the Elise for not doing anything early game, but isn't it just that the Elise wasn't able to execute on that? Like, sure, if you give them no options, but it's like people flaming an Elise for not having a lot of anything done in the early game can be the other team playing really well defensively and tracking them around the map, or it could be the person just like playing the pick poorly, right? I basically look at drafts like drafts are kind of like setting the odds for the game almost, and drafting is extremely important. But you can set a game at 55-45 and win from the 45 if you execute better, right? There's always going to be advantages and disadvantages, and it's more down to execution.
Cloud9 saying we only talk about Rest Rice. Do you guys still have Rapid Star? Why don't you talk about Rapid Star?
Hey,
you trying to throw a flame at me? You don't. I haven't seen you talk up any of your other coaches. Only Westerice.
Silk, thanks so much for the call. Anything you want to say as we say goodbye?
Just want to say happy birthday to my friend Spence, and happy birthday tomorrow to my friend Seb, and cat for Kobe.
All right. Anyway, that's the show. Mark, shout outs, plugs, what you got?
Nope. I might be putting out a piece of content this week that might be pretty fun, pretty spicy. So keep an eye out for that.
On your where?
Maybe on my YouTube channel.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have a YouTube channel if you'd like to put it out there.
We'll see.
I'm on a for reasons I can talk to you about later. I desperately need content this week. Azael.
Shout out to my loving wife Joanne, who is patiently waiting for me to finish the show and is very forgiving and wonderful. And also check out Lane Kingdom if you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
If you guys like in-depth breakdowns of why pros actually, are creating these huge advantages in lane at times, or how they're able to do really well in lane, definitely check that out, because I think one of the cool things about that versus just watching an LCS game is, in LCS when we're watching and casting, you have to follow all the different lanes, so it's not always clear how people are actually creating these advantages. I think it's really fun to do, so I want more people to check it out. The last one was on Niski, playing with Pantheon that you guys referenced earlier, solo killing Ica, and some movement that he did that was actually really pretty impressive. So check it out. Hopefully you guys like it. I'm going to have some more coming out in the coming weeks. I already have another one that I'm working on that's going to be a bot lane game, so should be pretty cool. Hope you guys enjoy it.
Okay, that's it for me. I've got some stuff coming out this week, and then I've got other stuff coming out later and a different time, and I create content. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I want to hit 200K this year. Follow me on Instagram. I'm going to put it in chat right now. There's an underscore. It's my last name with an underscore at the end of it because somebody else took it. I love everyone. The stream's going to stay on after the show is done, and this has been Hotline League episode